10, 20 years from now, 15 years from now, 7 years from now, why would I need to own a car? What if, when I wanted to go somewhere, I would just call a car company, which I subscribe to. I call a company, I subscribe to them. Every month I pay a certain amount. And I say, you know what, I have a wedding today. I want a car that's like this and like that and like this. And they say, okay, these are the options you have. Based on your subscription level, this is the type of cars available. Which one do you want? Which color? And then they send it to you. And then part of that subscription has fuel. Of course, the papers are taken care of. The maintenance is taken care of. And you can... Thank you. Okay. Maintenance is taken care of. Everything is taken care of. So the car comes. And then it's with you for a week. Right? So you appear in your event, at your event, with the car that matches the profile of how you want to look. Exactly. And then you're an SME, you're a business entrepreneur, you want to go for another meeting. And as they say, the way you appear, the way you dress is the way you'll be addressed. You get the kind of vehicle that matches what you want. So the person who's been talking business with you comes down, sees the ride, and says, yes, this is the kind of people I want. But think about it. Doesn't that make sense? But that's actually happening already. To tell you, a lot of the things you think are still going to happen much later are actually happening already. So, with that kind of mindset, what are we saying? That you need to turn a lot of things on their head. You need to recognize the trends. Where are people going? People want services, not necessarily to own the product. I want to be able to watch movies when I feel like watching a movie, right? And therefore I subscribe to Netflix or Hulu, right? Or DSTV. And then on their soft apps, I can choose movies on demand. So these are some of the things that are driving the things we are doing. So we talked about changing demographics, we talked about technology, and we're going to talk about the gig economy. Now think about it. Today, an organization, right, needs to employ full-time employees in order to get its services, to get the services of the individuals who work there, correct? Okay. The millennials have a characteristic whereby they do not want to be bound by time and space. They don't see why they can't work at home. And if one of them were to ask you, why must I come to office every day and you're their manager, what would you say? The question is, I mean, we've always come to work now. Where would you work before? Did you not beg to apply? But the question is, must that person be at a desk in a particular location in order to deliver a service? Many times the answer is no. And the fact that we're at a desk from 9 to 5, does it make us more productive? Not necessarily. Think of the wear and tear on of traffic. You spend how many hours in traffic every day? Now imagine that was not a consideration. Imagine you could offer your skills from your house. Right? So, we're getting to an age where people will be service providers. So if you're here today, you have a job, it's something to think about. If you were an entity, if you are an individual, if you were told to come and reapply for the job that you're currently in, what would you say? How would you package it? How would you package it? So, today there are a number of trends. You have things called remote working, which is what we're talking about. You may actually add more value to a company you work for if you don't have that stress of 2-hour commute in the morning, 2 hours later. You know the time it takes between the time you wake up in the morning and you actually get out of the house. Imagine that time was spent working. Could you be more productive? If while you're still in your boxers or your nightwear, you're actually working. So that means the workday doesn't need to start at 8. It could start before. Then what if you're people like my wife who don't like early mornings? Who just don't like that feeling of having to wake up early in the morning? So, Because I'm delivering a service, I could actually wake up when I want, deliver accordingly, and then go to bed at a different time. So these are some of the things challenging the way we work today. Co-working is a situation where people today go into virtual offices and they're working on different projects, different companies, but they work sharing the same resources. Because think about it again. If you're an SME in this place and you've always thought that you need an office of your own, ask yourself why. Why? What if we're three individuals who want to do business and the businesses are totally separate, but we could rent the same office, a single office with single resources, and all of us function from there? What's wrong with that? Is the cost not less per head? Would I not be saving money? So why not? So co-working spaces are coming up a lot more now because even organizations are realizing that sometimes the services they require from people, they don't need them in a particular place. Again, think about it. When an organization provides a service or provides employment to you, they provide a desk, a chair, a computer, depending on what level you're on. They create resources for you, and they have to have floor space. What if the company could be free of that cost? What if you saw yourself as a service provider, whereby you're providing a service rather than spend money? There's something that we call total cost of employment. What comes to you is just your salary, right? Or the benefits and all that. But it still costs the business more than what comes to you to keep you, which is the furniture they have there, the staff bus that takes you to and fro and all that. Let's say they were to monetize some of those things and say, we're not giving you an office. Work from wherever you're going to work from. Half of that money we'll save because we don't want to spend too much, and some of it will add to what we're giving you. Don't you have a table and a chair where you are? Exactly. So things are going to continually change because people are going to challenge the way things are being done. And what happens every time we challenge the way things are being done? Things change, right? Exactly. I remember then, back 1991-ish, I was working in a place between secondary school and university. And the computers you had then were computers like IBM, Compaq, Gateway 2000. And if I needed to bring one of those things to put on that table, myself and Deji and some other person will have to hold them. But today, the smartphones we hold are more powerful. Exactly. So things continually change. It's the same thing in the workplace. So if you're here today and you're looking for a job, how you look and the skills you portray need to change. The slide before this, you saw something called a gig economy. People are going to begin to ask for services, right, from employees without necessarily employing them. What if I could have an employee on demand? So I have access to a pool of professionals. They're good at their work, they're good at their jobs, but they don't want jobs. Because most of them are millennials. They don't want jobs. Why do I have to go somewhere from Monday to Friday? So the only days for me are Saturday and Sunday. Why? What if I can do what that company wants me to do between Monday and Friday in 2 days? Right? Why not? Employers are saying, why do I need to have the head count? And why do I need to have people physically here when it could be a win-win? I need something, I contract to you, deliver, I give you the money, everybody goes away happy. That's what's beginning to happen. So what does that mean for us in the workplace? It means we have to begin to rethink our relationships with our organizations. The services we deliver, we need to rethink them. If you were a business delivering a service, what exactly are you delivering? Organizations are no longer going to be paying people just because you were here from this time to this time. What value did you bring? If you were a business and you were a contractor, what service on your invoice would you say you have delivered? If you begin to look at your employment like that, then you're ready for the workplace of the future. You've heard about automation. We've all heard about automation? Yes. We've seen it happen, right? Back in the Industrial Revolution, when manufacturing was a big deal and it had come to play, it started where people would file into a factory and all of them would do routine, mundane jobs, right? At a certain point, technology wasn't as advanced to get machines to do it. But today, what do manufacturing lines look like? They're automated, correct? You don't need people to do those particular jobs. But don't they still need people? The skills required now are different, correct? So, if there's one message I want to leave today, is that you must be a learning individual. You must watch and follow the trends. Even the scriptures talks about times and seasons and how you need to keep an eye on them. God expects that of you. Because even God himself, though he remains the same, the modus operandi changes. And that's why between Christ and Moses, people couldn't understand that it was the same God that said, strike the person back and remove his eye, that is now telling you that you should turn your cheek? How? It must be wrong. It can't be the same God. He doesn't change. Is it not the same God? Times and seasons. So he's expecting that of you as well. Understand the generation and the time you're in. Now, I don't want us just to be susceptible to these changes. I want us to ride the changes. Let's take advantage of that change. What new skills should we learn in today that will help you to be better and more valued in the workplace? Now, if you're doing something that is mundane and routine, and that is repetitive, chances are a machine eventually can do that job more efficiently than you can. Right? But there are things machines can't do. And those are some of the things we're going to talk about. So for the job seeker, I've said here, you must be flexible. Don't necessarily look at jobs through the eyes of your former job. You know, when people were young, when we were kids, they would ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? And we would say the many things we wanted to be. The way the future is changing, kids are going to say, why do I have to be one thing? What if I don't feel like being an astronaut anymore? I'm not saying I won't be an astronaut, but let's say I don't feel like being an astronaut all of my life. So we're getting to a generation where you're going to be able to do many things in your lifetime. Don't we already see that happening? What you read in school, is it what you work with today? Does it make you bad? Exactly. Okay? Technology before used to be one of those things that, he's a techie. He likes technology, or he understands computer. He's a wizard, he's a tech whiz. Nowadays, the people who were referred to as tech whizzes are commonplace. The skills that set them apart then are skills that everybody now needs to have. I had somebody very close to me who has struggled to get employment because he never really felt that learning how to use a computer was important. He just now. It was difficult. He didn't know how to use a computer. I remember when I was working in a bank during my NYSC days, every senior manager had a secretary, right? Which meant when they wrote their letters or their memos, they wrote it in pen and handed it over to a secretary who would now type it with a typewriter or use some computer. I remember when the bank sent out a memo and said, no more secretaries for senior managers. Then the senior managers started to scramble. Because it was, I've always loved technology, I knew how to use these things, and I had worked earlier in a computer firm, so I was taking them through how to use computers. None of them were interested. They said, just take the small children who want to understand that thing. But when this thing happened, they said, where that copper, where that boy, I beg, come. They now realized it was important. So they had to start using it. But what happened to the individuals who were doing the work for their secretaries? Gone. So you need to continually evaluate your skills and see how you can continually add more value. You have to disrupt yourself. You have to ask yourself, if this job were not here tomorrow, what else would I do? And as Christians, should we have any problem with this thing? Of course not. What does Christ say? What does the Bible say? I can do all things. Exactly. In fact, I think on Judgment Day, we're going to answer a lot more questions around why we didn't do all the things God had deposited in us. Because He has imbued us with so much, but because of doubt, because of fear, because of lack of confidence, we don't become who we are. We don't stand in our own truths. Because we see someone else's truth, and that truth sounds nice, it looks funky, it is the way people are going, we want that one. But is it us? Is it what God laid in our hearts? Why is it that when pure water becomes a success, everybody wants to do it? Or becoming a doctor is cool, so every child must go and learn medicine. But today that has changed, right? I think I saw on Instagram a meme where they were beating the child back in the 90s when he was playing outside to go and learn book and leave ball. Now they are beating the child who is reading book to go outside and play ball. So, I think let's be true to ourselves. We are all different. And it's nice saying this to Christians because the Bible is our reference. God created everybody fearfully and wonderfully. And God doesn't exaggerate. Does He? If anything, it's understated. So imagine that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. And you're in the image, not just image, but likeness of God. Is there anything you can't do? So He has planted the seeds in you. The thing is, God is expecting us to discover what He planted in us. That's why He says, if you seek, you will find. So, we need to discover all those great things that God has put in us so that we can be more. Some of the challenges the world is facing today, these challenges can be surmounted if only the people with the solutions get up and actually discover themselves and use these solutions to help. Okay, we've talked about this. Another thing I want to say here, for those who are currently working, people skills. If there's one thing that is going to insulate you, or one thing that machines cannot take over from humans, it's people skills. We agree? You know, as you get up the ladder in an organization, what gets you in, what gets you noticed is IQ, intelligence quotient, ability to learn, you absorb knowledge, you're good at what you do. So you become so good at what you do that the business says, you know what, young man, I want you to go on to another level and manage people like yourself so that they too can become good. At that level, is it not a new set of skills you require? Exactly. So it's no longer about doing what you did that brought you here. Now you need to manage people. So, people skills are more and more important as you go up the ladder. And as technology and automation and artificial intelligence come to be, it's the human beings using that thing that technology cannot replace that becomes more important. Emotional intelligence. How to get more value from people who are delivering. How to manage the millennials. They need people to do that because the machines won't do it. How do you manage the people who are going to manage the machines? How do you manage the people who are writing the code for those machines? How do you manage and work in a diverse workforce? You have male, you have female, you have people who call themselves feminists. How do you manage in a workplace where everybody feels included? And you can get the most from people, right? How do I manage in a place where religion doesn't stop me from growing, or ethnicity? These are important things. So that manager or that individual that the business notices, that once he's part of a team, that team does well. Whether he's the leader or he's part of the team, they just know things around that person go well. That will be the person that gets rewarded. Continuous learning, we've talked about that. One thing I want to say here is the whole idea of imagination. You know, Henry Ford was brought an employee, and he said, it was said that he said, I don't want somebody who can recite the states of America and all their capitals. I don't need that kind of person. It takes a lot of brain power to do that, right? But the employer said, I don't want that. Because if I want that information, where can I go to get it? Even Google wasn't a thing then. Encyclopedia, or online, or wherever. But what I want is somebody who can think. And that's why Einstein, one of the world's most celebrated geniuses from time, what did he say? Who knows his famous quote? Beautiful. You can't solve a problem by thinking at the same level of which that problem was created. So you see, he uses that word thinking. But there's a particular one that involves imagination that I'm referring to. He said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Now take some time and think about it. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Can anybody tell me why that is? Why you think that is? Why do you think he made that statement? Yes?
I think at the realm of knowledge, you are dealing with what you already know and where you are. At the realm of imagination, you are taking yourself further than where you are.
Please, let's give him a round of applause. So even just hearing him explain those words, I think God wants us to use our imagination. There is so much God wants to do. When the Bible says, ear has not heard, eye hasn't seen, it shows you that there is so much more to existence than actually is. But God is looking for the vessels. You know, when we think of these things, we think of spiritual things only, or things in heavenly places, even on this earth. Do you think God didn't know that transportation was a problem before he put it in the mind of man to create things that can help him get from place to place? Do you think that was by accident? You don't know that that is the God genius at work? So what is it in your imagination that you're holding back? Why do we depend so much on knowledge? And like he eloquently put it, knowledge is what already exists. Imagination is like going into the world where people can't see and bringing something into existence, into this physical realm. And that's what we need to do more of. Let's teach our children, let's teach our young ones to unleash their imagination. Stand up here. Don't just tell me what happened in school. If you were to create a world tomorrow, how would it look like? If cars were no more, but we needed something else to get from place to place, but it couldn't be a car, what would you use? Let us fuel our imagination. And that's why it is said, it is more important to read than to watch. Because when we see the words, what do we do in our brain? We imagine. We create the pictures in our head. We're not just watching something that exists already. We are creating it. So two of us read the same book, but how we interpret it in our head, totally different. That's magic right there. So imagination is so, so important. So the employee who is going to be of more value in the workplace is that employee who can imagine, who can think, who can say, if things are not the way they are now, if they were to be different, The employee who comes to his boss and says, what if? What if? Those are the people the organization wants to hold on to. Because they don't just look at what is today. They're thinking of what is possible, what can be. Okay. Now, what of the employer? We've talked about how things are going to change for the employee. But what of for the employer? What does he need to do differently? One of the things I read while I was getting ready for this presentation was the fact that schools of thought and thought leaders are now saying, why pay people based on position? Why should I pay you because you're a general manager? Why don't I just pay people based on contribution? Imagine that. Imagine if we change to that model as a country. That it's not just for the position you hold, we reward you, but for what you bring to the table. Wouldn't that ignite more people to be contributory? And there are people who are in lowly positions that will get very good reward and compensation and recognition because it's now about what you do. So these things continually change. And it just shows you, as time is coming, things are still going to change. We said that they should consider the on-demand model, which a lot of them are beginning to think of, and they should take advantage of the millennials. Many times when you hear discussions among employers and HR, they look at the millennials like a trouble, a problem to deal with. Because all the things they have always known and all the things they have always done, those models don't work with the millennials. And you know when you think you can fight change, what happens? You get consumed by it, right? Exactly. I remember then, one of the CEOs of Microsoft then, when he heard about the iPhone, nothing will come off the iPhone. I don't know what they're talking about. But things have changed, right? Exactly. So when change happens, when things come, anticipate the change. Think of what it holds. Don't just look at what it is now. And that is why when the pharaohs heard about the birth of Moses, or when Herod heard about the birth of Christ, they were worried. Because they know inside that baby child is potential. It's not about today, it's about tomorrow. So you need to recognize the fact that when change comes small, when you just begin to see things and see trends, you need to be the first to take advantage of it. Because then you'll be the one to profit from it. Are we together? Okay, great stuff. So, food for thought. Consumers are shifting from ownership to access. People are saying, why do I need to? I remember when I used to download a lot of songs on iTunes and I would buy songs and all that. I had an issue when what I wanted to download exceeded the storage on my phone. Have you ever had that challenge? So now that companies, like even Apple themselves, have evolved to streaming, do I need to put the thing on my phone? And then you think about it. Why did I have to have 100 songs on my phone when I could stream? So today I pay a subscription and I can listen to any song. So the principle behind it is what I want you to understand. The principle behind it. Access. Access. Customers, the market out there is changing. People may not need to own things anymore. They just want to use when they want and drop. And does it change how they are? They wanted the service, they've got it. Okay? Next trend that I want you to take note of. People want to achieve more but do less. People want to achieve more, but they want to do less. And think about it. Is that not what technology is built on? Somebody can work less, but achieve more. And in the world we're in today, hard work is not what is rewarded. It's smart work. Smart work. So we need to be able to understand that if things are changing in the marketplace, we too, we have to change. What can I do where I am that can help people achieve more but do less? So today we have voice automation, voice assistants, right? We have Siri on Apple. On Google, what do we have? Google Assistant. On Amazon devices, we have Alexa, right? On Microsoft devices, we have Cortana. Today, you come into your house and you can say, Alexa, switch on the lights. And the lights go on. Turn on the microwave, and it goes on. Close the curtains, and it goes on. Now, a few years ago, that would sound like a wonder, right? If they told you a few years ago that you could just use your phone and hail a cab that will come straight to your house and take you anywhere you wanted to go, without knowing the driver before the time, without knowing the type of car it was going to bring before the time, that you didn't need to own a car, but you could arrive at a place safe and sound, would you have believed? If they told you that in the device of your hand, in your hand, you have something more powerful than that big, heavy, compact computer, would you have believed? So, what are the next things that are coming tomorrow that you can begin to think of today and position yourself to take advantage of them? Okay? Time and space is no longer a limitation, so people can work anywhere, different time zones. There was a staff of an organization. He was employed to do something. Whether it was because he didn't know how to do this particular job to that particular degree, or he was just being smart, or lazy. And sometimes laziness is not a bad thing, if it allows you to achieve more by doing less. Again, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because if there's one thing I want you to remember when I've left here, we need to begin to challenge all those beliefs we used to have. All those conventional thinking. That child that they say is lazy, sometimes he's just smart. And he knows if he can get his sibling to do the work, the sibling does the work. And then he gives him small meat or small of the cake later. Why not? That's the truth. So think about it. This particular employee, you know what he did? He will contract someone in Asia. Anytime they give him something to do, he will send it to the person in Asia. The person will do the work and send it back to him. And then he will deliver the delivered work. I can't remember whether it was some data-related work or something, or artistic. And he gives it to his bosses. Bosses are happy. They say, go and make this change. He goes back and tells the person in Asia to do it. And he pays the person from his pocket. Because what he was earning was enough for him to pay somebody somewhere else. Is that not smart? Then think about it. Is he shortchanging that person in Asia that is doing that work? It's not really. It's helping the person, right? So the person who may not have had access to the employer of that skills now has access. And if that Asian child or youngster that is sitting on his bed has 1, 2, 5, 10 of such people, may he not even be richer than the person he's doing the work for? Exactly. So things continually change. We're no longer limited by time and space. Those two words, what if, I want them to become part of your lexicon. When you start a new week, a new month, a new quarter, like we just started, and God has blessed us to see a new day, because every day is a blessing. Let us ask ourselves, what if? What you put after the what if is left to you. And let's begin to challenge all the things that are keeping us where we were. The scripture says, my people suffer because of what? The lack of knowledge. So these things we are saying, the scripture has said them for long. But until a consulting company comes out or a speaker comes out, we take for granted what has always been with us. Okay. Those who embrace change win, and those who fight change lose. The market will always determine the product. So in closing, what I want to say, the person you offer service to will always be the one to tell you whether the service you're offering makes sense. It's not the service provider that determines, it's the user. So 2 products are launched. 10 years later, one still exists and is thriving. Why? Because the customer has given feedback by buying it, by paying for it, by using it, by giving positive word of mouth. And the one that they didn't like, they don't use. And what happens? It withers away. So whatever you find yourself doing, always think of the person to whom you're providing the service. And ask yourself, what can I do to make that person enjoy this service better? There's so much to say, but I think with these words, I have sowed a seed, and it is that seed that is important. What is left for you is to water that seed so that we all would rejoice in the germination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alex, once again. Please, could we put our hands together once again for Alex? And let me ask you a question. Was that good or was that mind-blowing? Was mind-blowing and thought-provoking, right? So I dare challenge each and every one of us for us to go back home, okay, and think, is there something better I can do to the small business I run? Is there something better I can do with the work I do? I'm a paid employee. Can I make myself better? How can this help me? We have questions for Alex, right? Yeah, definitely we should have our questions. And but then we'll just ask Alex and to please take a seat here on our panel. And we're going to call quite a number of other people too to join Alex here on our seat. And we're going to call on. Sorry, please let me just get them. Okay, so thank you for correcting me. Thank you. We're going to call on one of our panelists too, on the person of Ms. Alice Key. She was here with us at IFOV, and she has deemed fit to please honor us once again. Thank you very much, madam. So next, we would like to call on one of our own, a barrister and pastor, Ugo Otuonye. We would like to call on a personal friend of mine, the man who is ready to sell up all the land in Nigeria, and the chairman of P1 Group, Austin Onwumere. Okay, we're still expecting 2 more panelists, but once they get in here, we'll get them on the podium. So please start writing your questions, and the questions I'll pick. We'll get one of the ushers to take the questions from you, and we will direct them at the panelists. Are we putting the questions down, or do we need pens and papers? You need paper? Ushers, please. Okay, does anybody have any questions for? Let's direct the first question to Alex. Anyone with questions to Alex? Sorry? You have a question? Okay. Any moment. Excellent. It's good.
not a question per se, just an add-on. I don't know if that is allowed.
Please, feel free.
Okay, fine. Just to add on to what he's saying, as he was saying, talking about a pooling of professionals on together where you can access services. I just want to add to say that that is already happening. We, my friend and I already have a platform called rapiddutyacademy.com where you can actually sign up and get somebody to do certain job for you, any techie job for you online. And to add to that, we're doing a free training for those that are interested. We're doing a free training this month, 17th and 18th. You can sign up. We'll provide a link for you to sign up for free. And we're having people to train you on certain skills where you can now go and sign up on the platform and people request for that service and you get paid.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jonah. That's wonderful.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
In the course of your presentation, you said we should stop blaming Nigeria. We should rather thinking about what we should do for Nigeria, which is very, very encouraging. But I want to ask, what has your experience been? Because my experience hasn't been fun in entrepreneurial speaking now. I have an international magazine, which I put all effort to present, putting a team or editorial team together to launch that magazine, the first international magazine, agriculture, as far as Africa is concerned. I spent close 4 million to put that event together. But 2 weeks to that event, the government postponed election to the date that we had initially planned to launch that event. We had printed documents, logistic, and all of those things. So we had no other alternative than to postpone. By the day we were doing that event, I realized not just more than 300,000. I will spend close 4 million. So can I be saying that I will not blame the country, that I should just be taking it like that, that it's not what I can do for what the country can do for me, but what I can do for the country. So I want to hear your experience in this regard. Lastly, I had somebody say to me in the course of this project that the rate of success as an entrepreneur in Nigeria is always, yesterday is better than today. You get what I'm saying? That if you are an entrepreneur in Nigeria 2 days ago, your chances of surviving is better than when you are an entrepreneur in Nigeria today. What has been your experience in this regard?
More questions? Any other question? And if you have questions, you want to write them down, you don't want to stand up, please, papers are being passed around. You can do your questions. Thank you.
Praise God. Thank you so much, sir, for the teachings. You said something about imagination is more important than knowledge. Yes, I'm an accountant. I work with a consulting firm. I had to practice what you just said about imagination. I had the thoughts in me, and what I came up with is something that will even benefit the country in terms of electricity. And I have a younger brother who is an electrical, a guru in that aspect. And we looked at how we can create software where people can even generate powers without disturbing the discos, without disturbing power holding. And we brought out a project. We looked at how we can develop it. We decided, let's let him go out and study more of that. Okay, where we are applying for the visas, they asked us to get a letter from the government. We went to the government and they said, we need to settle them. As Christians, sir, I don't want to do that. How do I do it? Should I still stay here and consult the people over there to teach me or give me the software? Wouldn't they decide to boycott? I want to know, sir.
Thank you. Any other question? Question?
Good day, sir. My name is Joseph. Still on the question of imagination, because when you were talking about it, it struck my mind. It's like thinking outside the box for you to imagine anything. And if you are thinking outside the box, you are thinking big. And the major constraint around this is fund. Because when you are thinking big, for example, you cited about the Taxify, Uber of a thing, it involves a lot of financial funding. And for somebody low that doesn't even have anything and the country is not ready to assist or to fund such projects, like my colleague said the other time, and you just see at the end of the day that your imagination will just go down and die with you. So what can somebody that doesn't have the financial capability or capacity can do in this kind of state? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please.
And any other question? I think you can take that.
Okay, fine. And please, Alex, please, and any other member of the panel, please feel free to tackle any of the questions that have been asked. Please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to start by first of all saying I'm not an entrepreneur. So I hope I haven't come off as saying I have those answers. And even if I were to be an entrepreneur, our stories would be very different. I want to say this before I go into the individual answers, because I see there's a common thread, okay? And I'm sure my honorable panelists here would also agree with me, and they would add their 2 cents. No success is easy. You know, we see the success stories, we hear the success stories, we read them, and after the fact, they sound like, you know, it was smartness, it was easy. No success is easy. When you read about Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, when they started Apple, they sold their personal stuff. A lot of these guys that are great today did not get handouts. They did not get support from their governments in their countries. I'm familiar with the story of the Wright brothers, the 2 brothers that finally made the aeroplane take flight. Now, if you're familiar with that story, the way I've heard it, there was another scholar, an engineer, that had supporting. In fact, there was support from the business school, I think, where he was, and he was being funded. These guys, I think one had a bicycle store. They used their meager earnings to put into the business that they wanted. Eventually, when they took flight, the other guy who was being funded just wound down and said, you know what, these guys have done it, I'm not interested. Because they were in it for the right reasons. They wanted to crack that problem. Now, why am I saying this? The journey of an entrepreneur, from where I sit, what I notice, is never easy. You're going to spend money, you're going to fail, you're going to have big dreams, you're not going to get the right support or the right backing, sometimes from even family and friends. People are going to doubt you, disbelieve in you, deceive you. But should that stop you? So, my gentleman who says, you didn't get support from the government, that imagination that brought you this far, that imagination should take you further. What do you need to do in order to surmount that challenge? What else can that body get in place of that letter from the government? So the challenge is back to you. What do you need to do? And to the young man who says, you had this great idea, but you don't have the funds. That's the whole story of being an entrepreneur. I am not an entrepreneur, but I have read a lot about it. If you're waiting for someone to give you the money to do it, why won't the person do it himself? That's the part of it. Having the idea is just the first thing. The genius is making it happen. Some people have had to work years and years and years to raise the money to go back to that idea that they had a long time ago. So that's again where imagination comes in. How do you go about raising the money? So I want the rhetoric, I want the narrative. Today is our 59th birthday. Let our narrative change from what the government is failing to do to what we can do. Because no matter what, there's always going to be a party that doesn't deliver what you want, how you want it, when you want it. They say what you focus on expands. So focus on the challenge the possibilities in the challenge and not the things standing in your way. Now, I'm so sorry to hear about your experience. I can't imagine how I would handle it. I cannot imagine. But the truth is, it has happened. And there is something in you that is greater than what is in the world. So let that thing in you get you up and fight the challenge. Tomorrow when you'll be telling your story, you will tell the story in retrospect and we'll laugh about it. But the fact is, that is in your past. What is in your future? The God that started a good thing is there to perfect it and see it to an end. Not so? Are we not children of God? Do we doubt the Father in which we serve? Did he ever say it will be easy? But it will be possible, right? So whatever it takes to make it happen, please, go ahead. And let us always continue to strive and move forward. All right? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you. And thank you.